6 months had passed since Daewon walked out of the council chamber. Earth's government had moved quickly, supporting his decision with unanimous approval. Within weeks, the recall order went out to every human serving in council space. Admiral Tae Yang stood on the bridge of the peacekeeping vessel Horizon, watching the stars. For 12 years, he had commanded human forces in conflict zones across the galaxy. Today was his last day. "All personnel are aboard, Admiral," his second officer reported. "We're ready to depart." Below them, on the planet Kelvar 3, two species were fighting over water rights. Human peacekeepers had kept them separated for 5 years. Tomorrow, nobody would be there to stop them from killing each other. "What about the mediation equipment?" Tae Yang asked. "Dismantled and loaded. The local governments asked if they could keep it. I told them no," Tae Yang nodded. It seemed cruel, but Earth's orders were clear. Everything humans had built, everything they had installed came home with them. The galaxy wanted humanity gone. They would get their wish completely. "Take us out," he ordered. As the Horizon jumped to hyperspace, Tae Yang thought about the other 3 conflict zones where human peacekeepers were leaving. How long before those situations exploded? Days, weeks? Not his problem anymore. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Jiwon packed her research. 15 years of work, carefully stored in data containers. 15 years of studying Velkari and Thrin psychology, finding common ground, building bridges between species that hated each other. Her assistant, a young Velkari named Sektul, watched with confusion. "You are really leaving?" "But the reconciliation project is over," Jiwon said gently. "I'm sorry, Sektul. I know you worked hard on this too. But we were so close," the Velkari said, his scales flushing with distress. "The peace talks were scheduled for next month. Without your research, without your mediation..." Jiwon zipped up the last container. "Then I suggest you figure it out yourselves. That's what the council wanted, right? For humans to stop interfering?" "That's not..." Sektul stopped. "We never meant..." "What did you mean?" Jiwon asked. The question hung in the air. Sektul had no answer. She left him standing in the empty laboratory. Behind her, 15 years of careful relationship building crumbled to nothing. Engineer Kyung-ho worked faster than he had ever worked before. He had 30 technicians helping him, all racing against the clock. They were removing the human-designed communication relay codes from the council's main translation system. "Are you sure about this?" his team leader asked nervously. "The entire council uses this system. Without our error-checking algorithms, they'll have to use the base system," Kyung-ho said, disconnecting another module. "The one that translates words directly without context checking. But that system makes mistakes. Remember the incident with the Tarl ambassador? The base system translated respectful disagreement as declaration of war because it couldn't understand context." "I remember," Kyung-ho said. "I spent 3 days fixing that mistake and preventing an actual war. But we're not responsible for fixing their problems anymore." The team leader was quiet for a moment. "How many mistakes do you think we've been fixing?" Kyung-ho pulled up a log file. "According to this, the human oversight team has corrected an average of 47 potentially dangerous translation errors per day. Every day. For the last 20 years, the team leader went pale. And now? And now they're on their own. Across council space, the withdrawal continued. Human mediators closed their offices. Human doctors shut down medical facilities. Human teachers left diplomatic academies. Human engineers removed their maintenance codes from systems they had built. It was quiet, professional. Humanity didn't make threats or dramatic speeches. They simply left. The council barely noticed at first, but then small problems started appearing. A trade dispute between the Keltiri and the Moran escalated when neither side could agree on mediator. Previously, humans would have stepped in. Now the dispute dragged on for weeks. 2 species almost declared war over what turned out to be a translation error. The base system had translated a friendly greeting as a deadly insult. Nobody caught the mistake until weapons were already being deployed. A human linguist would have caught it immediately. The Velkari-Thrin peace talks collapsed on the first day. Without Dr. Jiwon's psychological profiles and cultural guidance, both sides misread each other's body language and took offense. Within hours, they were screaming at each other. Within days, border skirmishes resumed. On Earth, Hana watched the news feeds in her apartment. She had returned home after 10 years in council space. Everything felt strange. Familiar but wrong, like wearing old clothes that no longer fit. Her communicator buzzed constantly. Messages from former colleagues begging for advice. She ignored most of them. One message made her pause. It was from Sektul, the young Velkari who had worked with Dr. G1. Please, the message said. The Velkari and Thrin are fighting again. We don't understand how to stop it. Dr. G1 would know what to do. Can you ask her to help? We will pay. We will apologize, please. Hana stared at the message for a long time. Then she deleted it. She felt guilty. These were people she had worked with. Friends. Or as close to friends as you could get across species. But Earth's position was clear. No help until the Council fundamentally changed. On the news, a reporter was interviewing Ambassador Day One. Some critics say humanity is being petty, the reporter said. That we're letting innocent people suffer to make a point. Day One's face was calm. He had aged in the past 6 months, new lines around his eyes. We tried making our point politely for 73 years. Nobody listened. The Council treated us as servants, not partners. They wanted our solutions, but not our voice. You can't have it both ways. But what about the people caught in the middle, the ones suffering because human mediators are gone? I feel for them, Day One said, and he clearly meant it. But their suffering is not our responsibility. It's the Council's responsibility. They chose to structure their government in a way that depended on human labor, while denying us human rights. That's on them, not us. The interview ended. Hana turned off the screen. Her apartment was quiet. Too quiet. She missed the chaos of council space, the constant problems to solve, the feeling of making a difference. But she didn't miss the disrespect. The casual dismissals. The way aliens would ask for her help and then ignore her advice. The way her work was expected but never appreciated. Her communicator buzzed again. Another message from council space. Another plea for help. She turned it off. Outside her window, Earth turned peacefully in the night. Somewhere out in the galaxy, systems that humans had maintained were starting to fail. Conflicts that humans had mediated were erupting into violence. Economic models that humans had balanced were collapsing. The Council had wanted humanity gone. They had gotten their wish. Now they would learn what that really meant. In his office at Earth's capital, Day One reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Every day brought new evidence of breakdown, trade problems, translation disasters, diplomatic incidents, violence. His assistant asked the question everyone was thinking. How long do we let this continue? Day One looked at the reports. Good people were suffering. Innocent people caught in conflicts they didn't start. It hurt to watch and do nothing. But 73 years of doing something had taught him a hard truth. You can't help people who don't respect you. You can't build peace with those who see you as servants. We let it continue, he said quietly, until they're ready to treat us as equals. The galaxy was burning, and humanity was going to let it burn until someone was ready to listen. The lights in the council chamber were too bright, as always. Ambassador Day One had complained about this for 15 years, but nobody listened. The chamber was designed for the Velkari, whose eyes needed intense light. Humans just had to suffer through the headaches. Day One sat in the human delegation seat, which was positioned in the back corner. Not at the main table where the real council members sat. No, humans were junior members, which meant they could watch and advise but never vote. Never make actual decisions. Today's session was about trade routes through the Theta sector. 3 months ago, human negotiators had spent weeks working out a compromise between 5 different species. Everyone had agreed. Everyone had signed. It should have been simple. But the Velkari Prime Consul, a large reptilian creature named Thexul, stood at the main podium with a different proposal. His scales gleamed under the bright lights as he spoke. The Velkari Empire proposes a new route structure, one that benefits all core members. Day One felt his assistant, Hana, tense beside him. She was young, only 30 years old, and still believed the council could be fair. Day One had stopped believing that a long time ago. That route cuts through human patrol zones, Hana whispered. They're ignoring our security concerns completely. She was right. The new routes would force human ships to travel an extra 2 weeks to reach their colonies. It would cost millions. But worse, it would leave 3 human settlements exposed to pirate attacks. Day One stood up. Consul Thexel, the human delegation, must object. These routes compromise the safety of our colonies. The chamber fell silent. Then someone laughed. It was a chittering sound, coming from the insectoid Thrin delegation. Hive Queen Zatrix clicked her mandibles in amusement. "The junior member speaks," she said. Her voice translated through the communication system humans had designed. "How amusing." Thexel's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "Ambassador Day-One, your species has been adequately compensated for your services. This matter concerns core members only." "Services?" Day-One felt heat rising in his face. "We resolved the Velkari-Thrin border conflict last year. We prevented a war between your two species just 6 months ago. We created the translation system everyone in this room uses right now. And we are grateful," Thexel said, his tone making it clear he was anything but grateful. "However, gratitude does not equal voting rights. The Council has spoken." "The Council hasn't voted yet," Day-One said. "A formality." Thexel waved a clawed hand. "All core members support this proposal." The vote was called. Every core member voted yes. The human objection was noted in the record but changed nothing. It never did. Hana's hands were shaking as they left the chamber. 15 years, she said quietly. "You've been doing this for 15 years. How do you stand it?" "I don't know anymore," Day-One admitted. They walked through the station corridors in silence. Station Concordia was beautiful, a masterpiece of cooperative engineering. Humans had designed the life support systems. They had solved the gravity differential problems that let species from high and low gravity worlds work together. They had created the medical bay that could treat 200 different biological systems. Nobody remembered that anymore. Nobody cared. Day-One's communicator buzzed. He looked at the message and felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Emergency council session. Tomorrow morning?" "About what?" Hana asked. He showed her the message. She read it twice, her face going pale. "The colony ships. The pirates really attacked them?" 3 human colony ships carrying 15,000 people to a new settlement had sent distress signals. Pirates had ambushed them near the outer reaches. The ships were damaged. They needed help. The next morning, Day-One presented the situation to the council. 3 ships, 15,000 civilians. They need immediate military assistance. Thexel studied his datapad without looking up. The outer reaches are not within core territory. "They're 4 hours from your nearest patrol," Day-One said, trying to keep his voice steady. 4 hours. "You could save them." "Could," Thexel agreed, "but it would require diverting resources from core defense." "The answer is no." Hive Queen Zatrix clicked her agreement. "The Thrin Collective concurs. This does not affect core member interests." Day-One looked around the chamber. Every face, every set of eyes, every alien expression showed the same thing: indifference. These were people he had worked with for years. People he had helped. People whose wars he had stopped, whose economies he had stabilized, whose children he had saved from plagues and disasters. And they were going to let 15,000 humans die because it was inconvenient. Something broke inside him. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was quiet, like a door closing. "I see," Day-One said softly. He straightened his suit jacket and walked to the podium normally reserved for core members. Nobody stopped him. They were too surprised. "For 73 years humanity has served this council," he began. His voice echoed in the chamber. "We have mediated your conflicts. We have solved your problems. We have built the systems that keep this station running. We have asked for only one thing in return: to be treated as equals." "Ambassador?" "This is not the time," Thexel began. "I'm not finished." Day-One's voice was sharp enough that the Velkari actually stopped talking. "Today you have made your position clear. Human lives do not matter. Human concerns are inconvenient. Human contributions are expected but not respected." He pulled out a data chip and held it up. "This contains humanity's formal withdrawal from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately. All human mediators, peacekeepers, technical advisors, and support staff are recalled. All human-maintained systems will be shut down within 30 days. All treaties and agreements involving human participation are void." The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in 100 different languages, all translated simultaneously into chaos. Thexel's laugh cut through the noise. "You think this matters? Humanity contributes 4% of Council military strength, 7% of economic output. You are barely relevant. Then you won't miss us," Day-One said simply. He placed the data chip on the podium and walked out. Hana followed him, her eyes wide with shock and something else. Something that looked like hope. Behind them, the council chamber descended into arguments. But Daewon didn't look back. He had spent 15 years in that room begging to be heard. He was done begging. In the hallway, Hana touched his arm. What happens now? Daewon thought about those colony ships, still waiting for help that would never come. He thought about every compromise, every humiliation, every time he had swallowed his pride for the sake of peace. Now, he said, now we go home, and we let them figure things out on their own. They'll fall apart, Hana said. Maybe, Daewon agreed, or maybe they'll finally learn to value what they had. They walked toward the docking bay where the human shuttle waited. Neither of them looked back at the council chamber. There was nothing left to see there. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson. Sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one holding everything together, and when that voice goes silent, everything falls. 2 years after humanity withdrew, the Galactic Council faced its darkest moment. The emergency meeting on Earth had been Thexel's idea. He had come to Chancellor Insu with a simple message. We need to talk. Not through messages. Not through intermediaries. Face to face. Now he stood in Earth's capital city along with Zatrix and delegates from 20 other species. The Council's leadership had come to humanity's homeworld to negotiate. It was a humiliating admission of defeat, and everyone knew it. Chancellor Insu welcomed them in a simple conference room. No grand ceremony, no elaborate decorations. Just a table, chairs, and the truth that needed to be spoken. Daewon sat beside Insu. So did Hana, Tae-hee, and several other human diplomats. Admiral Tae-yang was there too, representing Earth's military. They had all sacrificed years of their lives serving the Council. Now they would decide if that service could ever resume. Thexel spoke first. He looked old now, truly old. His scales were faded and scarred. The proud Velkari warrior had been broken by 2 years of watching his civilization crumble. We were wrong, he said, simple words that seemed to cost him greatly. The Velkari Empire formally apologizes to humanity for decades of disrespect. Zatrix clicked her mandibles softly. The Thrin Collective also apologizes. We treated you as servants when you should have been partners. Other delegates added their own apologies. Some seemed genuine, some seemed like words forced out by desperation. Insu listened to all of them without expression. When they finished, she spoke. Thank you for your apologies. But apologies alone won't rebuild what's been destroyed. We know, Thexul said. That's why we're here. To accept your terms. He pushed a data pad across the table. Insu read it carefully. So did Daewon and the others. It was everything humanity had asked for. Full voting membership, a council seat with veto power, economic reparations for the colony ships that had been abandoned, a public apology broadcast across the galaxy. It was perfect. It was everything they had fought for. And it wasn't enough. You're offering us power, Insu said slowly. A seat at the table. Compensation for past wrongs. But you're not offering the one thing that matters most. What more do you want? Zatrix asked, her voice strained. Hana answered. You're offering to make humanity equal to the core members. But the core member system is the problem. It's what created this mess in the first place. I don't understand, a delegate said. Daewon leaned forward. For 73 years, the Council operated on a simple principle. Military and economic power equals importance. Species with big fleets and rich economies got votes. Everyone else was secondary. That's how governments work, Thexul said. That's how your government worked. Tae-yang corrected, and it failed. It failed because you valued the wrong things. You valued weapons over wisdom. You valued credits over compassion. You built a system that rewarded force and ignored everything else. What are you proposing? Zatrix asked. Insu stood up and activated a holographic display. It showed a new government structure. Complex, detailed, revolutionary. Complete restructuring of council voting rights, she said. Every species gets representation, not based on fleet size or economic output, but on population and contribution to galactic stability. That's impossible to measure, a delegate objected. The archivists have already created a measurement system, Tae-hee said. They've spent the last year developing it. Diplomatic contributions, humanitarian work, medical advances, cultural preservation, all of it can be quantified and valued. You're asking us to give up power, Thexul said flatly. Yes, Insu agreed. We're asking the strong to share power with the wise, the rich to share power with the compassionate. We're asking you to value peace as much as you value war. The room fell silent. The alien delegates looked at each other. Thexul's expression was unreadable. And if we refuse? He asked. Then we wish you luck with your problems, Insu said simply. Earth will continue to prosper. Humanity will continue to grow. And the Council will continue to collapse. You would really let billions die to prove a point? Satrix's voice was sharp with anger. We would let billions die to prevent trillions from suffering the same fate later, Day One said. This isn't about proving a point. This is about preventing the same mistakes from happening again. Hana added, the Council's structure is fundamentally broken. Giving humanity a seat doesn't fix that. It just makes us complicit in a broken system. We won't do that. What about accountability? Insu continued. Your proposal includes reparations for the colony ships. What about reparations for the Kelman and Brava, the two species that went extinct? Thexul looked down. They're dead. Reparations won't bring them back. No, Insu agreed. But justice might prevent the next extinction. We're demanding a war crimes tribunal. Council members who enabled atrocities must face consequences. You want to put us on trial? Satrix asked, her voice dangerous. Only those who deserve it, Tae Yang said. Leaders who ordered attacks on civilian populations. Politicians who blocked humanitarian aid for political gain. Officials who allowed genocides to happen when they could have intervened. That could include us, Thexul said quietly. Yes, Insu said. It could. The room fell silent again. This was the moment. The alien delegates could accept humanity's terms and transform the Council into something better. Or they could refuse and watch their civilization die slowly. Thexul stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at Earth City. Humans walked peacefully below. Children played in parks. Life continued normally, undisturbed by the galaxy's chaos. We built an empire on strength, he said softly. The Valkyrie are warriors. It's who we are, and now you're telling us that strength isn't enough, that it never was. Strength is important, Day One said gently, but it's not the only thing that's important. The galaxy needs warriors like you, but it also needs mediators and teachers and healers. It needs all of us working together, valued equally. Zatrix made a clicking sound that might have been a laugh. The Thrin Collective has existed for 10,000 years. We've survived by being practical. By adapting. She looked at Insu. This is adaptation. Painful, humiliating adaptation. But adaptation nonetheless, so you'll accept? Tehi asked. I need to consult with my government, Thexul said. So do I, Zatrix agreed. You have 1 week, Insu said. After that, Earth's offer expires. We'll focus on our own people and let the Council handle itself. The alien delegates left. For 3 days, Earth heard nothing. Governments across the galaxy debated. Some argued for accepting humanity's terms. Others called it blackmail and refused. On the 4th day, Thexul returned alone. The Valkyrie Empire will accept your terms, and he said, all of them, including the War Crimes Tribunal. You might be tried, Insu reminded him. I know. Thexul's eyes met hers. I made decisions that cost lives. If that's criminal, then I should face justice. That's what the new system means, right? Nobody is above accountability. One by one, other species accepted, some enthusiastically, some reluctantly, some with anger and resentment, but they accepted. On the 7th day, the Council sent an official message. They would restructure. They would implement the changes. They would create a new government based on equality and shared values. They begged humanity to return. In the human diplomatic offices, everyone gathered around a screen to watch Insu's response. She had written it herself, carefully choosing every word. Humanity accepts the Council's terms, she read. We will return as mediators, as peacekeepers, as partners. But we return with conditions clearly understood by all parties. We are not saviors. We are not servants. We are equals. We will help rebuild what was broken, but the galaxy must do the hard work of changing itself. We can guide, we can advise, we can support, but the transformation must come from within. To the species who suffered during our absence, we are sorry. We did not want your pain, but we could not continue enabling a system that devalued the very work that kept you safe. To the Council leadership, we accept your apology. Now prove it was genuine by following through on your promises. To the galaxy at large, a new era begins, not of human dominance, but of true cooperation. Every species has value. Every contribution matters. Together we will build something better than what came before. Humanity is coming home, and we're bringing change with us." The message ended. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Hana started clapping. Others joined in. Soon everyone was celebrating, crying, hugging each other. They had done it, the impossible thing. They had changed an entire galactic civilization by simply refusing to accept less than they deserved. Daewon stood apart from the celebration, watching his colleagues. He felt tired but satisfied. It had taken 2 years. Billions had died. The cost had been terrible. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth it. Hana approached him. "We're going back, yes," he said. "We are. Will it work? Can they really change?" Daewon thought about that. "I don't know. But now they have a chance to try. Before the system prevented change. Now the system demands it, and if they fail, then we'll leave again," Daewon said simply. "But next time, they'll know exactly what they're losing." Outside the window, the sun set over Earth. Somewhere in the stars above, a galaxy waited. Broken but ready to heal, changed but ready to grow. 18 months after humanity withdrew, the galaxy burned. The Velkari Thryn War had consumed 12 star systems. What started as a border dispute had exploded into total war. Billions were dead. Entire planets were reduced to radioactive ash. And nobody could stop it. On Earth, former Ambassador Daewon watched the news with a heavy heart. His apartment overlooked a peaceful park where children played. The contrast between Earth's tranquility and the galaxy's chaos was stark. Hana visited him that evening. She looked older now, though only 2 years had passed. Some types of aging had nothing to do with time. "They're asking again," she said, sitting down across from him. "The council sent another request. What are they offering this time? Money, technology, territorial concessions." Hana pulled up the message on her tablet. "They're desperate." Daewon read through the offer. It was generous by any measure. Billions in credits. Access to restricted technologies. "Even a few colony worlds, they're still trying to buy us," he said quietly. "I know." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the sun set over Earth's capital city. Lights began to glow in windows. Normal people living normal lives, unaware of the catastrophe unfolding in the stars above. "Do you ever regret it?" Hana asked. "Walking out that day?" Daewon thought about the question. "Every day. But not because I think I was wrong. I regret that it had to happen at all. That 73 years of good work, honest work, wasn't enough to earn basic respect." "The archivist report changed things," Hana said. "People understand now what we did, what we were." "Understanding isn't the same as change," Daewon replied. "They understand we were important. They still don't understand why we left." His communicator buzzed. A message from Ambassador Tae-hee, Earth's current liaison to the Council. Daewon read it and felt his stomach drop. "What is it?" Hana asked. 2 more species went extinct. The Kelman and the Brava. They were wiped out in the crossfire of the Velkari Thryn War. Hana closed her eyes. "I knew the Kelman. They were poets. Their entire culture was built around poetry and art. I know. We could have saved them." "Yes," Daewon said. "We could have. But the Council chose not to save 15,000 humans in colony ships. They established the rules. We're just playing by them now. It was harsh. It was cold. But it was also true. Across the galaxy, the economic situation worsened. 3 major economic blocks had completely collapsed. Worlds that had been prosperous now faced starvation. The complex trade algorithms that humans had designed and maintained for decades had been simplified by alien economists who didn't understand how the pieces fit together. The result was disaster. On the industrial world of Kelthon 5, factories stood silent. No raw materials arrived because the trade routes had broken down. No one could afford to ship goods because the currency exchange rates were in chaos. Millions of workers had no jobs. Their families went hungry. The Kelthon government sent a message directly to Earth, bypassing the Council. "Please help us. Our people are starving. We will agree to any terms." Earth's response was simple. "Negotiate through the Council. That is the proper channel." But the Council couldn't negotiate anything. Every session dissolved into arguments. Delegates blamed each other for the crisis. Nobody wanted to take responsibility. In the council chamber, Councillor Subin watched another failed session. It had been 4 hours of shouting, accusations, and finger-pointing. Nothing had been decided. Nothing had been fixed. Thexul looked like a shadow of his former self. His scales were dull and patchy. He had lost weight. The proud Velkari leader had aged decades in months. "We need human mediators," he said, his voice hoarse. "Just temporarily. Just to help us negotiate a ceasefire." "We've asked," Zatrix said. Her usual sharp tone was gone, replaced by exhaustion. "They refuse. Then we ask again." Thexul slammed his fist on the podium. "We offer more. We give them whatever they want." "They don't want things," Subin said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She wasn't supposed to speak, but nobody stopped her. "They want structural change. Real change. Not payments or favors." "We can't restructure the entire council during a crisis," a delegate argued. "Then the crisis continues," Subin said simply. The chamber fell silent. The truth hung in the air, ugly and undeniable. The council was trapped. They needed help desperately, but they were unwilling to make the changes necessary to get that help. Meanwhile, on Earth, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Ambassador Tehi stood before Earth's diplomatic council. She was young for such an important position, only 40 years old, but the crisis had forced rapid promotions. The old guard like Daewon had trained her well. "The situation is worse than we thought," she reported. 14 systems have declared independence from the council. They're forming their own regional governments. Can they survive? Asked Chancellor Insu, Earth's head of state. Some might. Most won't. They don't have the expertise to run complex interstellar governments, but they've lost faith in the council completely. What about the humanitarian crisis? Tehi pulled up a holographic display. The numbers were staggering. Billions displaced. Millions dead. Entire species on the brink of extinction. "We could help," she said carefully, "if we wanted to. We have the resources, the knowledge, the personnel, but," Insu prompted, "but nothing changes if we rush in to save them now. They'll go right back to treating us as servants once the crisis passes. We've seen this pattern before in Earth's own history." Around the table, other officials nodded. History had taught humanity hard lessons about helping those who didn't respect you. "However," Tehi continued, "we should prepare a comprehensive proposal, terms under which we would return, not as junior members, not as contractors, but as equal partners." "They won't accept it," someone said. "Then people will keep dying," Tehi said bluntly. "That's the reality. We can't save people who won't let us save them on fair terms." The council voted. The proposal was drafted. It was comprehensive, fair, and absolutely uncompromising on the core issue: equality. When Subin received the proposal, she read it 3 times. It was everything humans had asked for during 73 years of service. Full voting rights, equal representation, a complete restructuring of council governance to value diplomatic and humanitarian contributions, as much as military strength. It was also everything the council had refused to give for 73 years. She presented it at the next session. The reaction was exactly what she expected. "Impossible," several delegates shouted. "You're demanding we dismantle our entire government structure," Thexul said. "You're holding the galaxy hostage," Zatrix accused. Subin let them shout. When they finally quieted down, she spoke calmly. "Humanity isn't holding anyone hostage. You're free to solve your problems yourselves. We're simply stating the terms under which we would help. You can accept them or not. That's your choice, and people are dying." A delegate screamed. "Yes," Subin said. "They are. And that's terrible. But people were dying before too. Humans in colony ships. Small species being oppressed. Poor worlds being exploited. The council chose not to care about them. Now you're asking humanity to care about you more than you cared about us." The words hit like a physical blow. Several delegates looked away, shame clear even across different biological expressions. "We made mistakes," Thexul said quietly. "We admit that. But surely you can see that the current crisis requires immediate action. We can discuss reforms after—" "No," Subin interrupted. "No more after. No more later. No more we'll discuss it eventually. 73 years of eventually got us nowhere. Reform now or solve your problems alone." She left the chamber while they were still arguing. Outside, she contacted Tehi on Earth. "They won't accept it." "We didn't think they would," Tehi said. Not yet. How much worse does it have to get? There was a long pause. I don't know. Maybe there's no amount of suffering that will make them change. Maybe we've lost the galaxy forever. Subin looked out at the station's viewport. Stars shined in the darkness, beautiful and cold. Somewhere out there, billions of beings suffered. And Earth watched and did nothing. It felt cruel. It felt necessary. It felt like the only choice left. Then we wait, Subin said. Yes, Tehi agreed. We wait. 1 year after humanity withdrew, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. The chamber was half empty. Several species had stopped sending representatives. Others couldn't afford the trip anymore due to economic problems. Counselor Subin sat in the observers section. She was the only human present, and only because Earth maintained a small diplomatic mission to watch what happened. She had no voting rights. She wasn't allowed to speak. She just watched, and what she watched was chaos. Thexel stood at the podium, his scales dull with stress. The proud Velkari leader looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Order! He shouted. This council demands order. Nobody listened. 17 different species were shouting in 17 different languages. The translation system was barely working, creating a confusing mess of overlapping words. The trade routes are unsustainable, a Kelthiri delegate yelled. You promised us protection, a Moran representative screamed. Our colonies are starving, someone else shouted. Subin took notes. Her reports back to Earth were read by millions of humans who wanted to know if the Council had learned anything yet. So far the answer was no. Hive Queen Zatrix clicked her mandibles loudly. Silence. Her voice cut through the noise. We must address the primary crisis. The Velkari-Thrin War has spread to 4 systems. Billions are dead. The chamber went quiet. Even through the bad translation, everyone understood the number. Billions. The humans used to prevent these conflicts, a small voice said. It came from a delegate Subin didn't recognize, some minor species from the outer systems. The humans abandoned us, Thexel snapped. This is not their concern anymore. Because we made it not their concern, the small delegate said. We told them to leave. We told them they were junior members, Zatrix corrected. They chose to leave. Subin wanted to laugh. Or maybe cry. They still didn't understand. They truly believed humanity had abandoned them, not that they had pushed humanity away. The emergency session continued for 6 hours and accomplished nothing. It was like watching children try to solve problems that needed adults. Except these weren't children. These were the leaders of galactic civilization. When the session finally ended, Subin walked back to the human embassy. It was a small office now with only 3 staff members. The building that had once housed 200 human diplomats and support staff was mostly empty. Her assistant, Minji, was reviewing economic data. The Kelthiri credit collapsed yesterday, she said without looking up. Their entire economic block is failing. I saw the report, Subin said. Did you know humans designed their economic model? 20 years ago, Ambassador Quan Ho spent 3 years setting up their system. It was stable. Perfect, actually. And now they've made 17 changes to it without understanding how the pieces fit together. The whole thing is falling apart. Minji finally looked up. We could fix it. I could fix it. It would take me maybe 2 weeks. But we won't, Subin said. But we won't, Minji agreed. She sounded tired. Is it wrong that I feel guilty watching them suffer? Subin thought about that question a lot lately. I don't think so. Feeling guilty means we still care, but caring doesn't mean we should go back to being used. A message came through on the official channel. Subin read it and closed her eyes. They're asking for help. The Council. Yes. An official request for human mediators to return to the Velkari-Thrin conflict zone. What are they offering? Subin showed her the message. Minji read it and laughed bitterly. Payment for services rendered. Like we're contractors. They still don't get it, no, Subin said. They don't. She sent the standard response that Earth had authorized. Polite, professional, absolutely refusing. Across the galaxy, the problems multiplied. A pandemic broke out on 3 worlds. Previously, human doctors and medical researchers would have coordinated the response. Now each world tried to handle it alone. Thousands died unnecessarily. Pirate attacks increased by 400%. Human anti-piracy patrols had kept the trade lanes safe. Without them, every shipment was a risk. Trade slowed. Prices increased. Poor worlds got poorer. 2 minor species went extinct, not from war or disease, but from what human anthropologists called cultural genocide. Larger species had been oppressing them for years. Human advocates had protected them, documented their cultures, argued for their rights at council sessions. Now those advocates were gone. The small species simply disappeared and nobody noticed until it was too late. In a quiet research facility on the council's archive world, a species called the archivists began a special project. They were scholars, dedicated to recording history and truth. They didn't involve themselves in politics normally, but what was happening couldn't be ignored. The lead researcher, named Keeper Talmoth, gathered his team. We need to understand what happened. Why has the council collapsed so quickly after humanity's departure? They were only 4% of military strength, one researcher pointed out. 7% of economic output, another added. Exactly, Talmoth said. Those numbers suggest a minimal impact, but the reality is total breakdown. We need to find out why. They began their research, data collection, analysis, interviews with thousands of species about their interactions with humans over the decades. What they found shocked them. Humans mediated 73% of all successful peace treaties in the last 50 years, one researcher reported. Human psychological insight prevented 91% of diplomatic incidents from escalating, another said. Human economic modeling prevented 8 major recessions across multiple sectors. Human pattern recognition stopped 34 assassination attempts and 12 coups. The list went on and on and on. Talmoth stared at the data in disbelief. How did we not know this? Because humans didn't advertise it, his assistant said. They just did the work, quietly, efficiently, while everyone else took credit. Or worse, Talmoth said slowly. Everyone else assumed these things just happened naturally. That peace was easy. That economies balanced themselves. That conflicts just resolved. The truth was devastating. Humanity hadn't been a minor member contributing a small percentage. They had been the foundation, the hidden structure holding everything together. And when that foundation left, everything it had been supporting collapsed. We need to publish this, Talmoth said. The council won't like it. The council doesn't like many things right now. That doesn't make them less true. The archivist report was released 3 days later. It spread across the galaxy like fire. Species that had barely noticed humanity before suddenly understood what they had lost. The council called another emergency session. This time, Subin was invited to speak. Not as a voting member, just as a witness. She stood at the podium and looked at the faces of the delegates. Many were new. The old leaders like Thexul and Zatrix were still there, but they looked broken, defeated. The archivist report says humanity was essential to council function, Thexul said. His voice had lost its arrogance. That we failed to recognize your contributions. Yes, Subin said simply. Will you return? Under what terms? Thexul hesitated. Zatrix looked away. Other delegates shifted uncomfortably. We can offer payment, Thexul finally said. Generous payment. Trade agreements. Technology exchanges. You're offering to pay us to fix your problems, Subin said. Just like before. What do you want? Zatrix asked. Her voice was sharp, angry. You want us to beg? Fine, we're begging. Come back. Subin felt no satisfaction from this, just sadness. You still don't understand. Humanity doesn't want payment. We want respect. We want equality. We want a voice that matters, not just hands that work. That's impossible, a delegate said. Restructuring the entire council. Then we have nothing more to discuss, Subin said. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council erupted into arguments again. They couldn't agree on what to have for lunch, let alone how to restructure their government. The galaxy was broken, and it was going to stay broken until someone was finally ready to fix it properly. Outside, Subin looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth continued peacefully. Humanity had problems of their own to solve. They weren't perfect, but at least they respected each other. Maybe someday the galaxy would learn to do the same.